invest in yourself, take the time to learn and to really kind of hone your skills and your expertise and kind of dig deep. Don't shy away from it. It's a very fulfilling career path. It's a very fulfilling life. If this is something that you're passionate about, I would say not to be intimidated and to go full speed ahead.
Welcome to Women Talk Tech, the podcast for business professionals committed to advancing women in the tech sector.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Women Talk Tech. I'm your host, Marie Wiese, and today I have a very special guest. Anika Howard is the president and chief executive officer of WONDR Nation, which is an online gaming and entertainment company. And I have to say, when Anika put her hand up and said she was interested in being on the show, I was skeptical. And the reason I was skeptical is I'm the mother of a 27-year-old male who spent too much time in the basement playing games and online gaming and thinking he was going to become a professional. And it was a real struggle as a parent to nurture and help this young man grow when he was so involved in gaming. And there was a lot of pros and a lot of cons. And so when Anika put her hand up and said, I want to be on the show, I said, absolutely, because I want to talk about online gaming and in particular, some of the work you're doing that is really, really important. Welcome to the show, Anika.
Thank you, Marie. I'm glad to be here. And I mean, what you talked about was very passionate to me. So I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Beautiful, beautiful. You know, I love it when you said, you know, you see technology as an equalizer and a way to bring people together. And we're going to jump into that. But first, we want to know about you. And our listeners always want to know, take us back to high school. What was Anika doing in high school? And were you a gamer? Were you thinking you wanted to build video games? What was going on?
Oh, so it was a very different path to get here. In high school, I was pre-engineering. So I started out believing that I wanted to build computers. So I graduated from pre-engineering. My father is a mathematician. And so they were very, very heavy on the math and science and engineering and tech. And so kind of wanting to do that path. And I was caught in this duality between being an artist and storyteller and creative and the idea that you can't make money doing that at that time, or that was the piece of it. So when I think back, most of my English teachers always assumed that I was going to be a novelist. Most of my math teachers always assumed that I was going to be an engineer. So I kind of fell out a little bit on kind of in between, where I still have the opportunity to influence technology in a very creative way. So I still feel like with technology and with the work I'm doing, you can be a storyteller. And when you think about the immersive environment that you put into games, like you are creating a story, you are inviting people in. And so from that perspective, absolutely, I did not have this specific path in mind, but I did was a lover of technology. I did like games, but not from a standpoint that I thought there was a career there for me.
Right. So you're kind of pulling it through few threads that I can relate to. I went to university for theater and film production, and sort of like, you know, at the end of second year, my dad pulled me aside and said, "What are you going to do with this? You can't make money doing this." And I thought, oh, well, that's sad. Okay, what am I going to do? And so, you know, everybody on the show always has a different path into the tech sector. And I sort of fell into the tech sector in the late 90s and was working in the software industry and financial services. And so, you know, I don't think any of us think the path that we're going to take is the path we're going to take. Yeah. But it's really interesting because not only did you have the creative side, not only did you have the tech side, but you are an active advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, you know, you really want to amplify this diversity message, which I think is super cool. So tell us what you do as the CEO of WONDR Nation. Tell us a little bit about WONDR Nation. What is it? What do you do?
No, absolutely. So WONDR Nation, I love talking about WONDR Nation. So WONDR Nation is a tribally owned company. So it's owned by the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation here in southeastern Connecticut. And if you're not familiar with the Mashantucket Pequot tribe, they also own Foxwoods. And so Foxwoods is one of the largest casinos in North America with over 4 million square feet of entertainment space. And so one of the things that the genesis of WONDR Nation came during coming out of the pandemic. So at that time, I was heading marketing for Foxwoods and many hospitality companies. And I think many people in general, after the pandemic, you're just reevaluating everything. And so for the tribe, one of the important things were diversification. It was always on their roadmap for how do you diversify and make sure that you're not just dependent on one thing for your livelihood. And really, at that time, they saw all of the work that was happening in other markets around online gaming and sports betting, and saying, the state was also looking for opportunities to recoup some of the tax revenue that was lost during the pandemic and all of those things recovery. So it just happened that there was a positive meeting of their minds to get online gaming and sports betting approved in the state of Connecticut. And that was how a lot of this started. But really, the vision for WONDR Nation was much, much broader than that. We see it as a way to really reimagine gaming entertainment and look and do things differently, and looking at the entire ecosystem, not just casino and gambling, but how do you incorporate unique experiences? How do you amplify different voices and perspectives and bring that into the space? And how do you use this as an opportunity to lean into culture and preserve culture? There's so many different ways when I talk about technology being an equalizer, but also an enabler to tell some of these stories. And so we saw this as an opportunity, not just to create a new revenue stream for the tribe, but really to create a new ecosystem for how tribal entities could bring technology and bring their stories to the market.
That's pretty cool. That's a pretty big vision. I want to kind of hit you with the hard question right off the bat, and the one that I think sticks and probably sticks in a lot of parents' minds as you're raising children who are very active online. But critics often point to the potential negative impacts of gaming and gambling on society, mental health, social consequences. Yeah. Do you run into this a lot, and how do you sort of address some of those issues?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think there is an opportunity to abuse just about anything. And we have an obligation as we expand the opportunities to educate. And so a big part of what I am is an advocate for education. So I say people aren't born problem gamblers. People aren't born alcoholics. People aren't born with some of these things. It's usually some underlying issue or kind of impetus that creates this as a way to escape, and kind of as a way that you want to get away from kind of a problem. And so one of the things that we teach and we try to do is just saying that, yes, as a organization, I have an obligation to make sure that I create a safe space for people to enjoy. I have an obligation to make sure that the messaging that we have from an advertising perspective is not misleading, to really, really reinforce that this is entertainment. This is not a way to get rich. This is not a way to fund your second house or et cetera. This is very much entertainment. It is gambling, and you should treat it with, make a budget. Here are some of the things that you can do to make sure that you play responsible and that it's something that you can sustain and not go outside of your budget. And I think it's exacerbated by there is this natural, because so many people are invested in technology, that it's bigger than just gaming, that you're seeing a lot of studies that we're looking at with just kind of the impact of just kind of social media and technology and the idea of death scrolling of not just on young people, but on people in general, that I really feel like people have become more insular with that. And so a lot of what we're trying to do are creating an avenue so that, as we look at developing products, that we build in some of those features into it so that you have a point that kind of puts in, I call it the Netflix effect. After you've kind of gone binge watching, are you sure? Are you still watching after 12 hours? Are you really doing that?
Exactly.
And so really trying to put some of those natural prompts in so that you are building in some of those things into the process. But I mean, I do feel like it is, to your point, it's not just about the idea of gaming, but it's the idea of when you're having some of these other challenges, leaning into these different things to basically placate and be a placebo to other larger issues. And so how do we prevent some of those things? But I agree 100%. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, trying to make sure that as we're doing this, we're growing responsibly and not at the expense of anyone's health and well-being.
'Tis the season of so many messages and promotions saying new year, new you. And while I do love a New Year's resolution, I'm sick of feeling like I don't have the resources to actually make them happen. If you're looking ahead to 2024 with some career goals in mind, Women Talk Tech is here to equip you with the lifelong tools and skills to achieve them in the new year and beyond. Join us on January 18th, 2024 for our Pitch Perfect workshop to learn how to pitch yourself and establish your personal brand. Whether you're seeking your dream job, negotiating a contract, or building your network in 2024, being able to present yourself with power, confidence, and clarity is essential. Head to our website, womentalktech.co/pitch perfect workshop to learn more and secure your spot today. Plus, as a special offer to our listeners, if you grab your ticket between now and January 5th, use the coupon code WomenTalkTech at checkout to receive $30 off your order. Happy holidays, and we can't wait to see you there.
Anika, I think you're a perfect example of our mission on Women Talk Tech is that we need so many different people at the table who are affecting the technology and the entertainment options that are going to affect us and challenge us as a community and globally in the world. So I'm really glad that you have a seat at the table, and I'm so happy about the work you're doing. I think it's not just about safety and responsibility in this particular sector, but just greater levels of diversity, which I'm loving. And so tell me a little bit about, what you've seen over the last 15 years. How have things evolved? And, in particular, this is a tough question, but you see a lot more males being attracted to the gaming world, whether it's online gaming or video gaming or whatever it happens to be. And it's interesting that there's very much a gender divide. And so as you've sort of seen the evolution over the last 15 years, what are you seeing? What's going on?
I see a number of things, and I can say that, yes, there have been many times where I have been the only woman or only person of color in the room. I remember kind of doing a work trip and kind of going through, and maybe like day 4 in, I was trying to figure out what was going on because I was the only woman that had been in any of the meetings. And this is still probably like maybe 6 or 7 years ago. So, I think a number of things have shifted. One of the organizations that I am very passionate about and I've been involved in for some time now, it's Global Gaming Women. And so a lot of what we're seeing are a much more concerted effort to recruit, and not just recruit, but retain women in the gaming industry. I think initially it was just a culture that was very difficult. And, I always say there's a difference between being invited and being welcomed. And so you had a seat at the table, but it didn't really matter because you didn't feel like you were welcomed and embraced or seen or heard. And so I think what I've seen in the past 10 years is more of a realization that diversity is a competitive advantage. I mean, when you there's so many studies that say, women-led companies, when you have kind of a diversity on the board, you have a diversity in kind of senior leadership, you have those difference of ideas that you're bringing in, that translates into more innovative thought, that translates into higher engagement, and that translates into people really wanting to bring their full self to work because they feel seen and heard. So there are lots of things that from not just because it's the right thing to do, but also that financially it's profitable to have diverse, kind of a diverse workforce, and especially a diverse leadership team. No, I'm seeing that there are more, I think, more intentional efforts to make sure that there's diversity within the organizations on at least on the gaming side. I've gone to conferences where they talk about diversity of the engineers and the designers, because things as little as having female characters or having characters of color are so important. Like before, they didn't have tools to have, to create hair that look like mine or to do different things. And so now you're seeing representation on all of these different levels. Right. You're seeing more women characters and more kind of minority characters in video games. You're seeing some of those things too. And that's a direct result of having a more diverse workforce.
Right. Okay. Now, as you look forward to 2024, and I don't know if you're going to get your crystal ball out, but what technical innovations are you finding particularly exciting, and what do you think is going to happen in 2024?
So, I think there's interesting thing. There's a lot of interesting discourse on what's happening with ChatGPT, and I think it came on the scene very heavy. And for us, AI has always been something that we've been leaning more into. For 2024, for me, I'm looking to figure out how do we really kind of take that AI and make it actionable, kind of figure out what are the problems that we're trying to solve, and how do we allow us to really kind of use that technology to do that, instead of just saying, oh, it's the next kind of buzzword, let's kind of figure it out.
Right.
From a gaming perspective, there's so much, tons and tons of data and tons of information that we need to wade through, that I'm looking forward to really leaning into AI from a data analytics perspective and from a decision-making perspective to be able to wade through like all these tons and tons of information and help me make better decisions from a marketing perspective, from a finance perspective, from a player perspective, and kind of and really tie some of those and use it to help build stronger kind of relationship ties to our players. And so I like that, and that's something that I have been. It's not new. Because AI has been around for a very long time, but now this generative, more natural language process, I'm excited to see kind of how we can see it in more practical ways in business both.
And I think also people having the mass access to it now, because I think there was some smart people who knew AI and were using AI 10, 15 years ago, but now suddenly there's mass access to it, and it's made for some interesting developments. And I think you're absolutely right that people are going to continue to figure out what to do with it. And I hope that people use AI for good and not for bad.
Same.
Yeah.
No, I think from an artist and creative perspective, it presents an interesting challenge because, you're looking at kind of that from a creative process and what are the things that you can do to make sure that you still preserve that. And like I said, there's still going to be some interesting ethical and social issues that have to be,
and it's the
really
Wild West right
evaluated
now.
As that comes forward.
Yeah, and nobody's really monitoring it or paying attention to it from the perspective that, right now it's generating a piece of art or it's generating a piece of content based on the style of Ernest Hemingway. What if we don't have any more Ernest Hemingways? What if we don't have people
Hemingways? Exactly.
Who will continue to create and be artists? And now we're just generating that, and it, it does beg the question about a lot of things. If you're looking to give advice to a young woman and you're really encouraging them to break into the technology space, what would you tell them?
I would just tell them to invest in yourself and take the time to learn and to really kind of hone your skills and your expertise and kind of and dig deep. But I would say, don't shy away from it. Definitely, it's a very fulfilling career path. It's a very fulfilling life. And if this is something that you're passionate about, I would say not to be intimidated and to go kind of full speed ahead.
Well, Anika, it's really important to have people like you out there. I've said for a long time that we need more diversity in the gaming industry, and you're a perfect example of somebody who's bringing a really positive voice to the table. And so I think a perfect example of a trailblazer as we close the year with our Trailblazer season. And I just want to thank you for the work you're doing, because I think it's really important. Anika Howard is the president and CEO of WONDR Nation, which is an online gaming entertainment company focused on using emerging tech to create new and exciting experiences for players. But on top of that, she wants to drive a lot of change and make sure that she's a solid advocate for people in the gaming industry, but also bringing diversity and inclusion. So I thank you for that work. I've been speaking with Anika Howard, and thanks so much for being on the show today, Anika.
Thank you, Marie, for having me.
You've been listening to another edition of Women Talk Tech. I'm your host, and as always, thank you so much for listening.